of all, welcome to Code and Coffee. We'd like to thank Mobilify, our sponsor, for giving us the space. Also, new sponsor for this month is Turning Point, and they've provided all the food and beverage for you guys tonight. Also, Lana Monroe at Type Brigade for doing our logo and branding. A little bit of housekeeping. We do have coffee, tea, Tim Bits, I guess, and some little things that Starbucks actually surprised me with and just gave us some stuff. I guess they weren't selling today. But yeah, so they did donate some little goodies back there. Feel free to help yourself. We don't want leftovers. Also, stickers. There are some Code and Coffee stickers, so get our brand out there and help spread the word for other like-minded people who want to kind of come and share their experiences in a safe environment. Okay, so tonight our speakers are Brett Crow, operating your own switchboard with Twilio, Dan C. Rice, what developers can teach the world, and Brian Jacobs, sharing cooperatively with...
That's not the name anymore.
That's not the word. Oh, we switched it, okay.
It's implementing your idea with no knowledge or skills.
There we go, implementing your idea with no knowledge or skills. Kind of like what I'm doing right here, right now. Okay, so first up is Brett Crow. I'd like to throw it over to him.
Is this thing off now, or? Oh, never mind. Where's? Yes. Okay, hello. My name's Brett. I'm going to talk to you about Twilio. Just quick show of hands, who's heard of Twilio? Okay, yeah, makes sense. Has anyone built anything with Twilio? Okay, you guys might have done stuff more advanced than me. I'd love maybe to talk to you guys afterwards. For those of you that don't know, what is Twilio? Twilio is an API service that allows you to program basically anything to do with phone calls, text, into your web apps. Before we dive in, who am I? My name's Brett Crow. Hello. I'm very new to web development. I've only been into it for about the last year. Before that, I was doing legal stuff for the federal government in Ottawa. And as someone who was always sort of wanting to get into programming, the new upgrades into Windows XP and from WordPerfect to Microsoft Word weren't the most exciting for me. It was rather surprising how many people are into WordPerfect in the federal government, but whatever, that's a different world. So in summer 2015, I took CodeCore's Developer Bootcamp in town. That's where I really got going with this stuff. If you're not a web developer and you're into it, I can't recommend them enough. So anyways, back to Twilio. So like I said, it's an API that allows you to programmatically send and receive phone calls and texts. It does other stuff too. Two-factor authentication, simplest form, basically like getting the text message to confirm your account in addition to email, more advanced stuff too. Call tracking, call recording, conference calling, hold queues if you're building like a call center style thing, automated surveys, mass phone numbers. Mass phone numbers, a lot of the dating apps use it to connect parties if they want to text and call and not actually show their actual phone numbers. So who uses it? Lots of big companies: Airbnb, Lyft, Uber. I think they all use it for their texting to their users, and I think Airbnb uses it for the mass phone numbers as well as part of their whole system to not allow you to contact each other outside of their platform. I think Coke and Nordstrom use it for big call centers, Match, and I think eHarmony, like I said, they do the whole mass phone number stuff. So yeah, it's a pretty well-known company. It's pretty big. There are other companies out there. Maybe I'll mention them after. And if people know more about them, I'd like to hear some stuff. So how does it work? This is just a basic example from Twilio. with the example of an incoming call. So if a user calls a Twilio number, Twilio will receive the call and then basically send your app an HTTP request with a bunch of information that you can then use to do whatever it is you want to do. Simplest form of this would basically be redirect the call. Maybe I am just doing a contact center and I just want the user to maybe press 1 to talk to someone, whatever. You can do a lot more advanced stuff, but that's the basic idea behind it. It also has a REST API that allows you to send outgoing calls to people. Basically anything you can think of doing with a phone and texting, you can program into your web app with Twilio. Part of that is Twiml. It's their markup language. It's just a bunch of verbs that you can use to make coding this stuff really easy. I could use .say and read a string of text to someone over the phone, dial to direct to another party. Just stuff that makes it really simple when you're actually coding this stuff. So how easy is it? It's really easy. Like I said, I'm very new to this stuff, and it's not hard for me. Basically sign up for an account, buy a phone number. You don't necessarily have to do that yet, and then write a few lines of code. So in its most basic form, signing up for an account, pretty straightforward. You get access to a trial number right away. It's a pretty manageable dashboard to find all your other stuff. Buying a phone number, it's something you don't have to do right away. You could write a method in your code that basically says when you need a phone number, if you need to call someone, if you need a number available for people to call, to provision a number then, and it'll go through and you can set it to buy a phone number however you want. In this case, I've just shown, I just searched for 604 numbers, a bunch of numbers available, a bunch of different services for them. I'll talk about the cost after, I guess. And then here's just the most basic example you could have, just in Ruby. Require the gem, instantiate a client that basically just tells it to use your Twilio account. You have a Twilio number here, that's the from number. I've kind of done this silly. It's just a list of 1 here, it's just my phone number. What you really want to look at is you can just do .message.create, you have the from parameter, which is the Twilio number, a to parameter, and then the body of the text. So if I was to run this code, it would just send me a text that says, hey, me, you. Calling is pretty simple too, same sort of deal, except you're just creating a call down here. Same thing, from parameter, to parameter. You also have this URL parameter. So what that basically is doing is telling Twilio what to do when an incoming call comes in. In this example, I think I took this from Twilio's website. I think this is just an XML file with some MP3s of hold music. So if I called this, if I ran this code, it would call me and just play me some hold music. If I was using this in maybe a more advanced context, or if I was, say, building a Rails app, which is what I do with Twilio, I'd use webhooks. So basically what webhooks with Twilio are doing is listening for a Twilio-related request and telling the application how to respond. So when someone calls, who should Twilio connect them to? I mean, in the context of Rails, what that looks like is just custom actions in your controllers, where you can just like I said, tell Twilio what to do. The example that I'm using it for, I have an incoming call method that basically looks to see if that phone number is associated with a booking in my application, and if it is, it forwards it to the other party. I could show some examples, but maybe in the interest of time, we'll just plow forward and I can talk to people if they're interested. Like I said, some of you might know more about this than me. So why Twilio? There's a lot of options out there. I've found more and more now. Twilio was the obvious one when I first wanted to do this. I assume it's probably one of the most well-known. A couple other ones I've seen is Plivo, I think that's how you say it, Nexmo, Cinch. There's quite a few. If anyone has opinions on maybe Twilio competitors and why they might be better than Twilio in certain situations, I'd love to hear it. But some of the benefits of working with Twilio, just from my own experience and things I've read, it's a one-stop solution to handle anything phone related. Like I said, you can do pretty much whatever you want with phone stuff related, connecting it to your web app with this. It's really handy. The cost, the cost is, I mean, it's reasonable. I don't want to get too into it, I guess. I mean, this is just a Twilio's little table chart. The thing I'll point to, I guess, is the $1 a month cost for a phone number. You have the per minute or per text cost as well. But the $1 a month, it's not that prohibitive. I mean, it depends what you're doing, but you can do a lot of stuff with just one Twilio phone number. I mean, this was a big thing for me to learn, I guess, when I have users in my app booking each other. I can do a lot of stuff with just that one number. So for example, if I have 2 bookings, let's say at 10 a.m. at a specific time, and at 10 a.m. I want outgoing calls to go out and connect those users. I can do that all with just one number. So I think Twilio has a limit of 1 call a second. So at 10 a.m. rolls around, I could send an outgoing call to user A, 1 second later an outgoing call to user B with a Twilio number, connect them, they're on the phone, they're talking, having their booking. 1 second after I send that call to user B, I can send a call with the same number to user C, and a second later to user D. On all these calls, the same number will show up on their call display. It'll be that Twilio number. But each call has its unique ID. You can basically just do a whole bunch of separate connections with one number. So it depends what you're doing. Obviously, if you want local numbers, if you want different area codes, if you want toll-free numbers. Anyways, this $1 cost is per month is maybe something you only have to pay for once for one number to handle all your call action. Why else Twilio? It's got great documentation. As a beginner, this was really helpful to me. These are just some of their tutorials. They have tutorials for a ton of stuff you might want to build in a ton of different languages. And basically what these are is just like step-by-step walkthroughs that can be really helpful, even if you're not building exactly what they're showing you how to build. Just having that sort of walkthrough available for a lot of different things was really helpful to me as a beginner. And just their regular docs are quite helpful and quite readable too, even for beginners. Yeah, so that's Twilio. I just wanted to give kind of a general overview. Like I said, I am still new to this world, so if there's people who have used Twilio, I'd love to talk to you guys about your experiences with it. It'd be really helpful to me. If you have any questions for me, feel free to ask. I don't know if we have time to do some questions right now. I actually have to take off right after this, so if you don't get a chance to talk to me, or if you want to, I'll definitely be here next month, or I think my Twitter's on the meetup, so you can message me on there. You'd be the first person to ever direct message me on Twitter. I don't use it much, so that'd be really cool. Yeah, so I don't know where Phil went, but do we have time for 1 or 2 questions, if there are any? Does anyone have any questions?
Sure.
Yeah.
Is there any lag with Twilio?
It's something that I think there used to be some problems with it, and now they've really done really pushed the idea that their quality and everything is really strong. Tam over there will know that when I was presenting at CodeCore, something failed with Twilio where my call didn't go through, and so that wasn't too great. But I don't know, maybe that was just me as a beginner coder screwing up, but I don't know. It seems to be something they care a lot about now.
Does it travel support other countries, American?
Yeah. So I think, I'm not sure anywhere they don't cover. I mean, that's one of the things that I'm not sure. I'm not sure specific. I would assume, but maybe not. You could easily look that up. They've really pushed the whole international thing recently too.
I looked into it a while back, but when you make the call in, it reaches out to your REST server, right? Is there any way to authenticate it?
In what way?
like to authenticate on your REST server that this is the Twilio server connecting to?
I'm not sure. Again, that might be something more for someone who's done a little more with this. Yeah, I mean, I've only looked at the other side of things, like looking, just setting up my stuff so it behaves properly when I get an incoming call. But yeah, I'm sure someone could tell you the answer to that.
Have you looked into an alternative of these three?
Yeah, so like I said, I mean, I listed a couple. I've looked into them a bit, but I'm already so committed to Twilio right now with all my code and everything that I'm pretty well locked into it. I mean, that's where I said it would be great if anyone has any thoughts on that, that I could talk to them after, just because if there is something substantially better. There are a lot of competitors. A lot of them are new, I think partly because of the success of Twilio, but there's a few that have been around for a while, it seems like. So.
I'd like to admit somebody connections to Twilio service.
Well, yeah. So I know there's that 1 a second that it can initially set up. I think there might have been. It was something that wasn't at all within my range of concern. And again, I think that's something that they, even the 1 call a second, you can sort of like talk to them and get that lifted as well, customly if you need it. If you need to, I think you have to pay more, but yeah, they're pretty flexible.
That's it. All right.
Cool. Thanks, guys.
Yeah. Yeah. Right. Based off of or have
Hi everybody, my name is Dan Rice. I'm happy to be here. And I'm going to talk about what developers can teach the world. I'm not a developer myself, and I can tell you a little bit about me. I've worked with TELUS Communications for 17 years, and I've been a product manager, a project manager, and I've done other jobs too, but that's the gist of my career. I've worked with a lot of developers. TELUS has a lot of different teams, a lot of different businesses, a lot of different applications. And I've learned a lot from the development community within TELUS and from consultants that TELUS would bring in. And I think that there are things changing now. Software is becoming so critical, not just in technology-driven businesses, but in every business, that there's a great opportunity now for the software community to reach out to the general public. So I think there's three key factors now that are driving this, that are making this opportunity so prevalent right now. One is we live in a software-driven world. And I know that's obvious to people in the room, people who work in software development, but I think what's changed over the last couple of years is that the non-development community, even my mom, people understand that software is huge. So that's a major change. Developer status in the community is very high now, probably higher than it's ever been. That's important too because you can influence people more so. And I think the skill set that developers bring to the table, obviously you need certain skills like good problem solving skills and attention to detail to be a good programmer, a good developer, a good designer. But those are skills that are vital not only within software, but also within any challenging project. And I've had a lot of great feedback on many of my projects from the software development team that went above and beyond software, that spoke to strategy and some of the other objectives of the project. I guess, I don't know if you know Mark Andreessen. Mark Andreessen, a couple of years ago, said software is eating the world. First of all, Mark Andreessen is the founder of Netscape. A lot of people probably don't know Netscape, but in the mid-90s it was the world's largest web browser. AOL bought them and it's essentially disappeared now. Google came along. But it saw great success for a period of time, and he still writes and talks about software and about entrepreneurship. And he coined this phrase, software is eating the world. And he was talking about, if you go back to 2011, the entertainment industry had already been radically transformed. I mean, music CDs were gone, and people were streaming or downloading music. Netflix was here. Streaming, movie, and TV industries had been radically altered by technology companies providing great software. So Mark Andreessen really anticipated, I think, the next few years where we've seen a lot of other companies, some in Vancouver and a lot of internationally really well-known big companies like Uber. Uber's huge force affecting the taxi industry, disrupting that industry. And then Airbnb would be another example. Airbnb has thrown the accommodation providers for a loop. So they're providing technical software-driven solutions to problems that previously weren't looked at in that capacity. There was also at the World Economic Forum, that's held every year. It was in Davos, Switzerland this year. They talked about the fourth industrial revolution. And there's 100 ways to look at that. I don't know if you can see that. That says machine-to-machine communications. That's kind of an old term. Internet of Things might be another term. The people at the forum, I looked at a couple of the talks, and really what they were talking about, and I heard some of this, I don't know if some of you went to the BC Tech Summit early in January, but there was also a lot of discussion about how certain industries had been developing for a number of years and had recently achieved breakthroughs. So examples are driverless cars, genomics. It took 14 years, and this was mentioned by, I think, Ray Kurzak at the BC Tech Summit. It took 14 years to map the first human genome, and now we can map someone's genome in just over a day. So long development time and then a radical improvement. Biotechnology, robotics, big data, analytics, mobile, software, all of these technologies have reached a critical point, and some have been brewing for a long time. Genomics is the best example. Driverless cars is probably a great example. Huge breakthroughs. So we're at the forefront of another industrial age, and I don't know, I thought this was interesting. The first one was mechanical health. That's things like stream, turning a wheel in a flour mill to make bread, steam locomotives. The second industrial revolution was mass production. So the late 1800s, early 1900s, that revolutionized production and lowered the cost of goods all over the world. And then electronics. So electronics started really in the late 1800s with things like the telegraph and the radio and lights, and then TV in the mid 1900s, and then finally the internet. So that kind of industrial age, people say it kind of peaked or ended around 1995, and now we're on the verge of another breakthrough. And what you call it or what you term it is difficult to characterize or to sum up in a sentence. But to me, it's all about software-driven innovation. And I think the people in this room and a lot of your colleagues are great evangelists, great people to talk to the general public about software. And I know, the community has a great tradition of reaching out within the community, working on open source software, There's things like coding camps. My kids now who are in grades 7 through 11, they're all going to be getting some coding next year in school, which is quite something. So it's an opportune time to reach out and share some of your knowledge with the public. And this fourth industrial revolution really, I think, is a software-driven revolution. I know some of the projects I've worked on, the developers feel that everybody's chasing them down, and you know, there's some truth in that, right? You are the innovators, you are the creators. I'm a product manager, I've been a project manager, and frankly, you can create great software without product managers and project managers. So yes, there's a lot of pressure on developers, but there's also a realization that the development community is really important, and not just within technology companies, but in every organization, not just private companies, but not-for-profits, governments. They're all critically dependent on software. So thanks to things like that, thanks to Silicon Valley and great tech hubs around the world like Vancouver and many others, the general public now realizes and understands that the software community is really important, and you have valuable skills that you can share with others, and I would hope that you're ready and willing to share those skills with others, and importantly too, educate people like me who don't really understand software or the consequences of the changes that software is driving. I guess some of the skills that a lot of software developers possess, things like problem-solving skills, attention to detail, teamwork, and the image in the past of a solo, typically 20-somethings guy working through the night. Essentially, in most serious organizations, that's disappeared because now you have to work with teams. There's so many different areas of software development. You can't possibly know all the applications, all the languages. You have to work with others. And then sometimes you have to work with people like me, managing projects. So teamwork is at the heart of software development now. And I added one that I didn't see much in the literature, but grit and perseverance, because I think when you're working on something big in a software opportunity, it doesn't progress necessarily in a straight line, right, from beginning to end. Sometimes there'll be some great innovations, you'll release software, you'll have a new release, great users love it, and then you'll try something else, you go through another sprint and you've made a mistake. So progress is kind of like this. There are ups and downs, right? You have to have perseverance and grit to see things through to the end. And I think those are all critical skills. This is hard to see, but a couple of dinosaurs watching Noah's Ark float away. Oh crap, that was today. So, I mean, that's talking about attention to detail. I think it's a skill that you need in programming, and it's a skill that's often overlooked. And all of these skills, as I said, I've worked with software developers who've had great insight into really tough problems that went beyond the immediate software challenge. And a lot of today's great entrepreneurs are software developers or started out as developers. So you have lots to contribute, definitely within a software context if you're a programmer, designer, tester, but also more generally, I think, people want to know and understand and listen to the software community. Yeah. What I'd like to see in the software community is the same thing that happened, I think, in the science environment or the science community probably 20 or 30 years ago. So I don't know if anybody knows Bill Nye the Science Guy. My kids, who are between 12 and 16, they used to listen to a lot of his videos, really enjoyed it. So he's one of many people reaching out within the science community to the general population. There's David Suzuki, and I'm old enough to have been at UBC when David Suzuki was teaching. But David Suzuki is better known now for his foundation, his environmentalism, but he's been in the media for 20, 30 years with Nature of Things, his TV show. So the scientific community has reached out over the last 20, 25 years especially to the general public and is educating the public about science, and people are curious. I would say the same thing's true about software now, and now you as a community and other colleagues have an opportunity like none before to reach out and to talk to people. You can, obviously there's things that are immediately and obviously part of software, like coding camps, working on open source software. But I think that, you know, when the late Steve Jobs, I've got Bill Gates up here, Eric Ries, who wrote The Lean Startup, when people like these folks talk, the community, the general population is ready to listen. People want to understand what software can do for them. People also are a little bit worried. That fourth industrial revolution also talked about robotics and automation. There's a little bit of nervousness out there. And I don't say that it's the responsibility of the software development community to calm people down, but I think people want to be informed. They want to understand what the changes are that we're building in the software community. What's that going to mean for them? And great companies, Mobify, Global Relay, Hootsuite, 3 Vancouver companies, software developers, we're the founders of most of the organizations we see popping up in Vancouver and elsewhere that have had great success. So people are ready and willing and interested, I think, in listening to what you have to say, both in a software context, because that's important. I know my kids are really keen to learn programming and coding, but also in a more general context. You know, what does software mean for me? What changes are coming? Let's talk to them about those things. Let's tell them about the good, the bad, the ugly, the full meal deal, because people are ready and willing to listen. Thank you.
Right. Hey, everybody. So actually, this is kind of a perfect thing to be talking about after a presentation like that's been given, because it's more about my personal journey about coming to almost all those same realizations that Dan was just talking about. So it's about implementing an idea around about me. I graduated from UBC with a Bachelor of Science, and I've been working in a warehouse ever since. Doing not much, just doing like union organizing and a lot of activism, and doing a lot of organizing the community, and really coming to the conclusion that community power is really the only way to get things done. And then this is where the ideas kind of came from. So right now in the market, there's a lot of big sharing apps that claim to be sharing things, but really you're not sharing anything except for information. People are finding ways to rent their own property, and there's very, very little actual sharing going on. So like, how can we use the technology to actually make people share instead of just renting stuff out? And also, how can we, like, what could we share is the other big thing. Because obviously, if you own something, you don't want to just give it away because there's security and stuff. So I came to a whole bunch of conclusions, which I'll go over next, but then I went and talked to my network about it and tried to validate it. So my conclusions were that collective ownership was a big way to empower the community. So instead of just having the hosts join up, you actually make them owners by having them pay a share into it. And that idea has kind of developed into this new concept called platform cooperativism. And there was a big conference in New York about it in November, where you actually take models and network models to empower the community more so. Yeah, so those are kind of my answers to those questions and where my motivation came from. And I went out and talked to the people I knew, and everyone was telling me that the great ideas were good and that the project was going to work, but no programmers would give me the time of day. because exactly like Dan said, they all felt like it wasn't worth their time, or the idea wasn't highly developed, or they were just being accosted by so many different people trying to get them to build this idea that really, without anything to show them, they're not really going to start listening. So my big lesson is that no one that matters will care about your theories. You have to build something and show them that it works. My biggest problem was that I hadn't actually coded anything since my grade 9 computer science class, which we did like HTML3 or something like that. So I had some work to do. I did it though. I went online and scrapped together all these resources through all of this stuff that's available open source, and just learned. My initial prototype was in PHP and SQL. MySQL, just followed a YouTube tutorial, and within 8 weeks I had a functional, minimally viable product and a prototype that I could go out and show people. And the experience of doing that was invaluable. I got so much knowledge about user interfaces and design, and just being able to talk to programmers was another big skill that I got out of it. And also kind of understanding that programming and software is where everything's going. A lot like what Dan was saying, it's, you need that power yourself almost to be able to get anything off the ground. So the project is now finally getting a lot of attention. I've got a small team that we're putting together branding and UX. Advanced Cities Community Grants Program is going to help us get some funding for some local incubators. And now my job is to try and take it from that initial PHP and MySQL project that I did and reiterate it with modern resources. And I'm looking at React and PostgreSQL right now, but I'm open to any other suggestions about that because I'm really starting from scratch. Yeah, that's pretty much all I really wanted to say. Yeah, if you want to know any more about my experiences or want to give me any tips, you can email me, or if you want to know more about the project, you can sign up there. All right, that's that.
Okay, great talks, you guys. We were so lucky to have 3 wonderful talks. Okay, so after talks, so reminder, there is some red wine over there, coffee and snacks, so help yourself. Stickers on the table, please help yourself. Just want to remind you guys about the Code Coffee mission statement. The goal is to have an equal and welcoming community, an open space that is a community stage that is basically free of any biases and judgment, and trying to build on that community to allow people to come together, share ideas, share their projects, maybe just carve out a little time to work on your passion projects while you're here. It doesn't always have to be about networking with other people. Maybe you just want to sit in a corner and code away. But yeah, so we want to have that environment that people feel welcome to do that without being judged. So yeah, so that's the mission statement. If anyone is interested in speaking, please reach out to any of the organizers. Abinya is our newest co-organizer. Also, all the other organizers are listed on the meetup, and you can reach out to them if you are interested in volunteering to speak. We'd love to hear from you. They have a whole package that helps you put together, slides and validate kind of your presentation ideas if you don't have very much presentation experience. Okay, or if you do have lots of experience, we'd love to learn from you as well. All right. So yeah, that's about it. Please look us up on social media. Feel free to share any of the pictures and things here. I'll put up the social media links in a moment, and yeah, away we go. All right, thanks.